Okay, that's real life economics. As I said, and in a way we are in the middle of what we are talking about today. We stopped yesterday, we finished last time with exponential growth. And as I said, what we are doing now and the next week is recapitulating what we did, revisiting things, and you have all the information, you have all the slides in your material, so we don't need anything. You just have to listen and take notes. That's always useful to take notes as well, that you then can go wherever you go and study. Exponential growth, and this is where we stopped last time. And we are going on to externalization. And economics seems to be something about very strange processes that happen on the market and wherever. And it just comes to my mind, we always say in economics, and we criticize it, what is called methodological individualism, which means we do not look at the entire economic processes, but we are looking at what individuals do. We talked about it. Individuals agree on contracts, conclude contracts, and interact with other individuals. Now, it may be individuals in terms of a person. It may be individuals in terms of enterprises or institutions, but all thinking about individual interaction. Now, why I say it's this abstract economic process, and I mentioned it last time already, exponential growth and externalization. What actually happens? Some people come late. Now, establish this link. Some people come late and others are waiting. At the same time, it means for the others who are waiting, for the next time, I come late anyway, because we start later waiting for the others. So first it's 4 people, then it's 6 people, then it's 8 people. And more people decide actually on an individual basis, why should I come on time? Because we are waiting. And at the end of the time, at the end of the year or whatever, you have one person sitting there and being on time, and the others just come late. It's this exponential growth which happens on the behavior level, and it happens in economic processes, where we have, and this is the second link, exactly this process of externalization. Because some people behave and others have to externally pay for it. They have to waste their time. They could have stayed in bed 5 minutes longer, I don't know, it's not my thing. They could have gone for a walk. They could have taken their breakfast more quietly, more relaxed. So you see what actually happens, and in which strange way you find a link between these abstract processes of the economic sphere, where we think about markets and figures and equations and all these things, and thinking, actually we cannot grasp it. We cannot really understand what is going on there. It's such an abstract thing out there on the markets. We don't have any control. There is a company like Apple and actually they are dictating prices. It's all independent of us. And then we see, actually we do part of it. We accept things to happen. We accept monopolies to happen. And we are all the same there. I'm getting frequently annoyed about certain technologies, but then I think, what can I do about it? I have to accept it. And then you give out. We all have certain rights as consumers, as workers, as whatsoever. We all give out occasionally when it's too much. Then you have these funny things, which are actually not really funny, but you go onto a helpline. And always think it's two, at least two involved. And it's two, and it's two, and it's two. There's a long, long chain. And then these things happen where we think, okay, I complain now. That's too much. I call the helpline. And then if you have this problem, please wait. And we are taking your call seriously and blah, blah, blah. And wait and press 1, press 2, whatever your options are. And this is the difficult thing, really, that we are not really knowing. And in several cases, we cannot know what is going on behind the screen. And this is where you have this link, and I just want to make you aware of some facts, this link between very abstract processes and real life. You go onto a helpline. I did this occasionally with my computer problems, and saying, well, if you're finally getting onto somebody, if it's only this problem, just send me the software, I install it here, and things happen. No, actually, we cannot do it. My computer was sent to the company. I cannot do it. We cannot send the computer back because your computer is actually, I don't know where. So you dial a number, this was in Ireland, you dial an Irish number, you talk to somebody in India, and this person says your computer is in the Netherlands. I said, sorry, I dialed an Irish number. You are talking a very strong Irish accent. He said, no, forget it. That's another story. So there are long chains, and this is the difficulty of economics, to deal with these long chains of actually externalization. And this is what I said frequently, what happens with these processes, it is a permanent extension of the space, of the time we are dealing with. We have had the small, manageable economies that actually had not been economies as such. There had been spaces of interaction. We did things without thinking in separate terms of them. We did trade, we exchanged things, but it was not exchange. It was daily behavior, it was interaction. We didn't think about this being a separate commodity. It was good, it was dear to me. I needed it, I wanted it. I produced it to some extent myself. We produced it together. And you have it in wherever you go, in terms of the market, in terms of education. We are not dealing with knowledge anymore. We are dealing with exams. Sadly, but that's the fact. We are not dealing with water. We are dealing with a commodity, increasingly. We are not dealing with interaction, but we are dealing with information. And only if you turn back the wheel in some way and say what it is actually about. It is interaction. It is not information, but it is knowledge. Then you will be able to understand what it is about. Then you can understand actually why it is pretty useless. I refer to one essay because this person said, sadly it is the case, why it is pretty useless to make one exam after the other. On the one hand, we are forced to do it. You are forced to sit the exams. I am forced to take the exams. But the problem with it is we are not accumulating knowledge, but we are just accumulating these papers. In a way, we are pushed it. We can't change it. At the same time, it is this added grain of rice on the chessboard. Exponential growth, where it is difficult for us to avoid being caught. Being caught in this permanent circle, we have to do more and more and more and more. And at the end of the day, we end up with not being able to do anything. There's another essay which I thought it was interesting in terms of the topic, making me aware of it. Again, I don't know the Japanese name and the Chinese name. It's the early death, work-related, stress-related. As I said, I was getting aware of it when I saw the first time, I think it was in London Heathrow, at London Heathrow sign memorial, this and that person passed away with, I don't know, young age, 50 or something, which is young age. At least in a way it is young age if you consider heart attack. Heart attack was really something when I had been young. It happened to old people. And old people, I'm talking now about really old, well, kind of really old people. Things are getting relative. But with 50, a heart attack, you would consider this is very early. This essay referred to this early death at the age of, I think, 21 or something. That was the first case when this was really coming up. After this first impression, there's somebody passing away with 50 or 45 or something heart attack. I thought this is very early, this is an exception. There are so many where this happens. Whatever, if it is heart attack, if it is stroke, if it is stress-related, what we call today burnout. You have it in so many jobs. I avoid the term professions. You have a huge dropout rate when it comes to studying. People simply not being able to cope with the pressure. And what we have is, I said, exponential growth, the orientation on growth. Consider what we said, and we will come back in this recapitulation to this, considering growth in terms of GDP, in terms of a more or less abstract number. Not in terms of something real. Exponential in terms of very fast and with an increasing speed. This is what happens in physics as well. Drop a stone out of the 6th floor or something. Measure the speed. It's getting faster and faster. And at some stage you cannot stop it. There's only one way to stop it. It's the crash on the ground. In economics we talk about crisis. We are not really getting aware, or we are not allowing us this awareness of what actually happens. To see, to accept what happens is something that in one way or another we caused ourselves without, or let's start with this way, somebody throwing the stone out of the window and we not stopping this person to throw it. As well, there are two sides. Externalization is something that is especially important in economics now as a matter of markets. We established markets, market economies. As I said, first it was not a market, it was just interaction, it was exchange, yes, but not of commodities, but of goods, of things we needed, of things we produced together, the commons. It was ours. Now we established markets. Trading, not dealing with, trading commodities, exchanging, oriented along the lines of gain. Not of the value that we use, but of the value that we get out of it. And this change, this major change in history of the orientation as well as the mindset orientation, that is to some extent, to a large extent, out of our control, means that we have as well certain spaces that are redefined. We always have had these spaces of interaction. And direct interaction is only possible in a very small space. Direct interaction. I can, to some extent, interact with you. If I would have a video recording, I couldn't know how many people are actually watching this video. Don't trust statistics on the internet in this respect. I always find out they are completely wrong in many cases. But anyway, even if we would know the number, we wouldn't see the faces, we wouldn't see the interested ways people are looking, the bored way, the tired ways, or whatever. Direct connection depends on immediacy of contact. The market is this abstract things where we have abstract borders that are defined not by this interaction, but they are defined by gain-oriented exchange. Then we can say, okay, closed markets, economic terms, or term from economics, closed market is we only allow exchange happening in this room. Full stop. And this room may be this room, it may be the campus of the university, it may be Shanghai, it may be China, and then it stops. In economics we say the closed market is the market of a national economy. There's no, in the extreme case, closed market, there's no exchange with other national economies. we have our currency, meaning we have our money. We produce whatever we need in this country. We have the raw material, we have the machines, we have knowledge, we have the people. And we don't need anything more. And then the alternative is, of course, we don't have any closed market, any closure, meaning we have a really global market. And a really global market would be one without borders, without national currencies, without national rules, where you would have one world currency. We don't have it. So be careful with this term of globalization. Of course, I don't contest that globalization happens, but it happens in a very specific way. It happens while maintaining the rules or certain rules of the closed markets, national currencies. Go to buy something in another country and you have to exchange money. Go for holidays in another country, you have to exchange money. Go in a country like the United States or in a region like Europe, Europe, from one country to another. You may have the same currency, the euro, but you still have very different patterns of the entire economy. And this is the question of externalization. And we have had this one keyword of comparative advantage, that you say, okay, we have the different markets, the different economies, but there is interchange between them. It is possible to establish something like a common currency, not in real terms, but in terms of a calculation. We have exchange rates. The exchange rate is, in one way or another, a common currency. At least for this moment. It may be a second. We have one thing in common. We have a value of 1 yuan equals so-and-so euro, US dollar, yen, pesos, something. It's in a split of a second. Now, we don't see this split of a second because if we go, there is the exchange rate this day. But actually, if you are serious about it, it's not this day, but if you are coming back an hour later, it may have changed. But at least it is establishing something in common. Don't go there the next day, or wait until the next day. How do you know it? What is the best? If you are good in speculation, you know it. If you are bad in speculation, you don't know it. It's as well depending then on where do you exchange and things. Externalization means externalization in substance, i.e., if we don't have in one economy certain raw materials, we just put this part of production out of the country into another economy, and say, okay, we do exchange when it comes to gold. We need gold, we need copper, we need certain raw materials, coal. And this is the area in which we exchange knowledge. And you may have it even in regions of national economies where you may look at the so-called Silicon Valley. This is supposedly the knowledge center. Modern technology, high-tech, silicon. Things we usually don't understand really what it means. Moore's law. And then you have externalization in time. And externalization in time is very important, increasingly important actually, in terms of our awareness at least, that we are getting aware of the fact that what we do today has effects tomorrow. If we sleep today during the lecture, we have to do at some stage what we missed there. If we destroy the environment today, somebody later has to pay for it. It may be that we have to pay for it. It may be somebody else has to pay for it. It's not only these long-term effects. It's as well that, for instance, the oil exporting countries may say at some stage very soon, and they did so in 1973, now stop it. It's our power, and we increase the price per barrel. There was a major effect on the economies of the oil importing countries. It's not just the oil. It's not just about energy. It's about kind of everything is getting more and more expensive. There's so much where oil is used. I don't know how many percent oil are in this little mouse. But it is based, the production is based not least on oil. So things are, in this way, from one year to another, from one day to another, possibly changing. And then, of course, you have the long-term effect in what is called today peak oil. That's simply the natural limit. There is no oil anymore. At least not under these conditions under which we have had it up to now. And then you can discuss again what it means. You have these fracking processes where oil is reached in areas which had not been imaginable some time ago. You dig deeper and deeper. And you have other consequences. I'm not into this part of science, but this fracking is not without long-term consequences for the environment. That's what people say. So we have to look at externalization. What does it mean? Then we have, in many cases linked to this, the question of externalization in space. If we don't want, if we cannot, for whatever reason, cope with the consequences, then just bring it to some other places. The waste we produce is something we have to cope with, or we just export it. There are many stories from different countries including Germany. And I mention Germany for a very special reason, because the Germans have been for a long time considered to be champions in recycling, separating rubbish, plastic to plastic, paper to paper, and. And it had been said in many countries, oh, this is great. They are really, really aware of it. Until it had been found out, after doing this, they put it together, sent it to India, and in India it was burned. This was not really great for the environment, but this was what happened, and what unfortunately had been known at some stage. But this is exporting, externalization of cost, environmental cost, into other areas, into other regions. And it means as well, of course, it's linked, mostly it's linked, export these costs, externalize in social terms. Why is India so poor? Or are certain countries so poor as they are? Why is knowledge concentrated in certain areas, in certain countries, in certain regions? Not least because this comparative advantage is to a large extent defined as competitive advantage. And by definition it is. We do what we can do best. But this means as well we close indirectly the economy again. We don't allow you to catch up. You have to do the uneducated work while we do the other work. You have to deal with the waste that we produce or that we produce by our consumption. This is a socio-economic process, and it is a political economic process that nevertheless is relevant for every single enterprise. Because we are competing, and because we cannot, as long as we remain within the system, we cannot leave it. Exponential growth. If I don't grow, somebody else will grow. If I say this one field on the chessboard is enough, you can do whatever you want. What happens? If they grow, at some stage, the rice corns will suffocate me. So what I have to do is two things. Try to put as many rice cones on my field as possible. Grow, grow, grow. And at the same time, close the borders. It's a paradox. As I said, we are dealing with paradoxes. On the one hand, I need this openness, comparative advantage. At the same time, I have to make sure I have to try to make sure, as far as possible, to close the borders that nobody can interfere with my business. This is a permanent conflict as well that you find on the level of enterprises negotiating with others, trying to establish monopolies, competition, and competition law. You have regulations that undermines to some extent extensive competition, monopolies. And at the same time, it happens on the international market, if you look, or on the global level, if you look at international negotiations as TTIP or something like this now, free trade. Just leave the trade as it is, without any restrictions. These things are politically negotiated and they are economically negotiated by setting prices, by competing in such a way that you are permanently negotiating and renegotiating in economic processes by price setting. Are you currently opening or are you currently closing? Are you buying in expertise, or do you build up your own expertise? Do you have your own financial service? Do you have your own accounting department? Or do you buy it in? There are good reasons for, well, kind of good reasons for kind of every solution. It may be cheaper to produce outside. You lose control. If you are not working for me, but for another enterprise, I cannot control you. I cannot control your business, not personally, and I cannot control your enterprise. I don't know, you may be already bankrupt, and I still think, yeah, business is going fine. So in this way, you see the conflict. In terms of space, there is actually something happening when we look at globalization now, in terms of having other companies or parts of our company in another country, that it may be cheaper to produce in another country. It may be cheaper for whatever reasons, raw material, labor power, wages or social costs, taxation. But then at the same time, all right, another important factor is nearness to the customer. You don't have to build your cars in France, you have your Renault production site here in China. It's a long way for a car. So you save money, and at the same time, a frequent problem in many countries is you cannot cope with the rules. The work ethics is different. The legal system is different. Again, conflicts. What is the role of trade unions? In the United States, trade unions, to undermine trade unions is no problem. In Europe, in many European countries would have a problem, and American countries coming there would have a problem if they say in a European country, trade union free. There are conflicts, renegotiations. It's as well about currency. And then you see law coming into play. is it possible, or where do we actually make the profit, and where do they finally end? We may make the profit here in China, but actually China doesn't see anything of it because it is repatriated and goes back to France, to wherever. And this is a question not only due to the power of a company, but where political or legal regulations play a role. And I say political or legal because all legal provisions are, at the end of the day, political. There's another thing, and this is something we'll talk about in the next session.